Here we go. Do you want to do like a big podcast interview? Like a, hello and welcome back here with SJ Brand.
Not so good on the radio voice, mate.
Wasn't it?
No,
We're going to do that course.
Yeah.
I found a course. There's like a community radio one we're going to go have a look at. That would be a thing.
You might have to do the talking part.
I've got a lot to learn, I would have thought.
So back for another part 2 with SJ Brand today. And we're going to pretty much dive right into your books and your genre and what you write about. So I'll just lead us in again with the synopsis that we ended part 1 on. So your books are, well, this book in particular is a sexy, suspenseful and brutal story of self-discovery, self-love and self-preservation. A dark romance fantasy novel that turns the genre, as you know it, on its head and leaves you wanting more.
Yep.
So,
nailed it.
Please tell us more.
So the first book in the series as a whole is called the Stained series. The first book is called Bloodstained, and it begins with a young female who believes she's human, and she lives with her parents, and she knows that for her whole life there's been this person that's been hunting her and trying to find out who she is because she's been told that she's unique. She doesn't know why she's unique. She hasn't really questioned it. She's just been told to sort of keep her head down, to not draw attention to herself.
This sounds a little bit like a girl from when she was 11 years old and got told off about something.
She had a pet hippopotamus. No, she didn't. And she ends up going on the run when she's a teenager because she doesn't want her family to be put under threat because somebody's after her. She returns back to her family when she's been told that this bloke that's hunting her is dead. Turns out that he's not. Her family get killed. She goes on the run again. And when she goes on the run again, she stumbles across this mysterious village or town called Fern Creek and meets Jace, who happens to be the alpha wolf of a wolf pack. And they find out that they're true mates, which means like in the werewolf genre, usually you're fated to one particular other wolf or person or whatever, and that's you meet them and that's endgame, that's you done. And so that's what he was for her, and then she finds out through that she's not actually human. She's she's not a wolf either. She turns out to be a tribrid. So she can shift into wolf, panther and bear, believe it or not.
Well, hey.
100% if it's written, I believe.
I feel like I need a sidestep.
Can you imagine if I was 11 and put this forward to be like, that is not believable.
I feel like I need a sidestep, sorry. So there's a werewolf genre and you're writing within this genre, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's obviously fantasy. I think a lot of people call it romantasy because it's romance
Twilight.
/ fantasy. I mean, look.
I've never seen them or read them.
The Twilight series.
Was there romance in that, or were they just teen movies,
was,
the actual Twilight
He's
ones?
Actually not being sarcastic.
No.
For those.
So they were books to begin with, Twilight, but that sort of young adult basis. Yep. It's focused on more of a teenage, and mine.
And under 18. And yours is an over 21.
Yeah. I mean, the first book you could probably get away with maybe. Maybe on the first edit you could have got away with it being young adult, but not so much now.
But so is this the first thing you got into creative writing after the?
Yes.
Right. So this is your first creative outlet.
Because I really enjoyed reading those books, like working in emergency services and having kids. I didn't want to read nonfiction. I didn't want to watch the news.
You're like, life's hard enough. I don't need to.
Oh, hell yeah. Like,
well, it's an escape. You need to do something different.
Yeah. And so I would just like smash these books, just read them. And when I'm reading a book or even writing a book, like I feel like I've literally been dropped into that world. Like I'm reading pages and words on pages, but I'm seeing stuff play out in front of me. So I don't really even watch TV much anymore. My husband and I will sit and watch movies together, or if we're watching a TV show, The Gentleman at the moment on Netflix, if you haven't watched it.
Have heard.
Oh, my God, so good. Anyway, I'll just read if my husband's at work, the kids are in bed, the TV's off, and I'm either reading or writing.
So I think what you've just said then, is writing even more immersive than reading a good thriller book?
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. And especially the way that I wrote the Stain series is I did zero pre-planning, which probably makes other authors' eyes twitch because
It's literally how we do the podcast.
really, I didn't notice.
That's how I do it. Oh, wow. Oh, Al's got notes.
I read a synopsis.
No, but I think that's why I like it, because you're just chatting, you're having conversation. You're not. It's not.
You don't want things to be too staged.
No, not at all. And yeah, I would get excited. My husband thought it was hilarious because he'd be like, "You're writing like you look like you're up and about. What are you excited about?" I'm like, "Oh my God, because such and such just did this, and now this is going to happen." He's like, "You seem surprised," and I'm like, "Well, yeah, I didn't see it coming." And he's like, "What is wrong with you?"
He's like, I told you you're bipolar.
So there's no plan. So I made a note in episode 1 that I might go back to now. Well, you mentioned, we said that you weren't dictating the books because it was maybe inappropriate to be saying out loud, but it sort of said that writing is the deepest form of thinking as well.
Yep.
And sometimes in any sort of writing exercise, you don't actually know what you think deeply until you've written it out on the page. So you're finding that with story writing as well.
Yeah, I don't think I could dictate because I'm better on paper than I am speaking. Like, I don't think I could. What are you going to say, Berzo?
I was just going to say, I think it's easier to like rant and ramble when you're on like your recording stuff, whereas when you're writing it, it's a lot slower. And by the time you've finished writing the words, you can actually think clearly about where it's going from there. Like I think paths become a lot clearer when you write them down, like how people write lists and that sort of stuff as well. Like if you just ramble on a voice note thing, you'd probably find it went for 35 minutes and you'd be like, what have I got here?
Yeah. And
Okay, every time I go on a rant on a podcast.
Well, you're speaking, the words that you'd use in speech are a lot different to the words you'd write. And you can sort of go back and go, oh, that probably wasn't the best cinnamon here. Like, let me pick a different one. And I'm
also curious. So initially you were like texting the book in your phone.
Yeah.
Have you evolved to keyboard, laptop? And is that different process? I mean, I hate texting like that process, but quite like typing.
Yeah.
Are you finding that's different how you're writing or thinking with those two techniques?
Yeah. Every now and then I'll still do it on my phone if I'm stuck on the couch with one of the kids and they've fallen asleep on me and I've got nothing to do, I'll type it on my phone. But it's so much easier on the laptop. Yeah, way easier. And I've got a setup in my bedroom now with a desk, and it's really nice. Like, my husband built me this beautiful bookshelf and it's sort of my little haven, so I enjoy sitting in there and doing it rather than being in the middle of doing something else and writing. Yeah.
And you abandoned the pen quite at an early age, but do you know or do you remember, is there any difference between writing with a pen to typing?
I actually I even found it difficult in school, or when I was in high school. We didn't have laptops or anything. We still wrote everything by hand, and I really enjoyed doing that. And so, yeah, writing on my phone was pretty much the first time I'd written since pen and paper at school. And I thought that I'd find it really difficult, but the transition wasn't too bad. Yeah.
Yeah, I think with dictating and some of this AI assistance, we're going to lose a bit of our soul of writing.
Yeah, 100%.
I hate writing by hand, and again, haven't done it since school, but it'd be interesting whether the actual thought process is different through writing with one hand as opposed to typing as well.
There's a lot more pressure writing with pen and paper, because if you make a mistake, like I'm a bit of a perfectionist with even at work writing, like I've got 2 books that I write in, one that's stuff then and there, and then the other I translate across because I want it laid out a certain way. So I find that easier now with a laptop rather than handwriting stuff with lines through things, or you get tired and your handwriting changes.
I think a lot of that too, though, is like if you just write poetry, for example, handwriting's easy done because it's like a page or whatever.
Yep.
A novel with 200,000 words, and especially since if you actually wrote out 200,000 words, now you're going to have to transcribe it anyway onto a laptop and then do it. So it's it's not really the same as it used to be. But I completely understand where people are doing calligraphy and stuff comes into it. Like it's very mindfulness. Like I love writing with handwriting, and I like decent pens and all that sort of stuff to write with them because it makes it sort of more of an experience.
I'm a left-hander, so I destroy everything.
Yeah.
A little segue, but I've actually learned how to touch type in the last year, which I could never do. I was just the two fingers, and it's made a massive difference to writing different things and articles and things, just being able to look at the screen and efficiently type. That thinking really flows a lot better when you can type properly.
Yeah, when you're 10 words per minute versus 60.
With 100% error rate.
Yeah, massively different.
Yeah.
I hate that quick brown fox, though, jumping over Lazy the dog.
So, and keep correcting me if I get this wrong, but we're talking werewolf romance genre.
Yeah.
But you're saying that you can't read it out loud at home and that sort of thing. So can you give me an upper end of what sort of what romance, graphic romance, is that what we're talking about?
Notice the level of redness in our space changing.
So with writing with genres of books, you can have romance, which typically would be like you'd have a drama movie like The Notebook, yeah? Mm-hmm. That's romance.
Also haven't seen, by the way, but
okay.
I know what it would be.
It's a lovely story. People love each other, whatever. A few, hanky-panky scenes, not too bad. But then you've got Erotica, which is your 50 Shades of Grey.
Okay.
So in comparison.
That's maybe, I was maybe
you're like,
assuming it's up there already. No, I haven't seen that, no.
Do yourself a favour.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the same.
I was more into like the Houston 500 and Debbie Dow Dallas and stuff. Like that's his, yeah.
Yeah.
I only know what one of those is.
that says enough, mate.
So it's the same with writing. Like you've got different genres, and I think one of my favourite things that I've read, it's like I don't watch porn, I read porn because I'm a fucking lady. And that's what
that's what I was being careful of getting at, and I don't want to paint your books to be something they aren't. But that's what they are. men watch pornography. Yeah. Women read romance. Is that like a fair?
They say it's romance, but it gives them a cover.
Erotica.
But you need plot. Like there are books out there that it's just they got it on, or they got it on again, and now they're doing it again, and it's just you just skim through and you're like, whatever, this is bullshit. But you want females in particular want a build up to it and a love story, and
as much as we like to pretend they don't.
Well, what I have found with readers, and whether they're friends of mine, like I've got friends into this genre that have never read anything in that before, and now they're addicted to it, and they're like, well, reading. They're addicted to
written porn. You're like, I'm so proud of them.
Men get in trouble for having porn addictions, but is it no one's in trouble for having a romance novel?
If you put it in a book, that's the thing. Like if you had a bunch of stick mags hiding in your house, your missus would be like, they'd burn them. But you go to a girl's bookshelf and you look at them, but they know we'll never read them. But I guarantee you pick up 50% of them. There is some horrid stuff that they've been reading in there.
But I think women in particular have been, they've been not pigeonholed, but they've been told that they need to think and act a certain way. So they, like to begin with, when I started writing these books, I was like, I enjoy reading this, but I don't think that I could write it. Like I don't think I've got it in me. And
there'd be a fear of judgment as well.
Yeah, fear of judgment and that fear of embarrassment, which I don't have anymore because I'm like, well, what is there to be embarrassed about? People enjoy reading it, and I
find it funny that this is okay with you. You're not okay with people believing that people like the rest of your story, but you're like, oh, they love the porn part.
Yeah.
I'm mad for that.
Yeah.
I'm completely confident in that.
And so you will stand in Fed Square and read it out loud then?
Oh, look, put a price tag on it.
$2,000. We talked about that. It's an editor.
True. And that's the thing too. Like maybe if I did a Patreon where you're actually reading it, and because there's a lot of people that don't just like audio books, they like to watch someone sit there and turn the pages and read a book. Like that's the thing too.
Very ASMR sort of.
Sorry, as in like a YouTube video of watching somebody read the book.
I was horrified. Sorry, what?
Yeah.
It's like how many degrees of separation is that?
Well, the thing is we have, like there's a lot of blokes that watch dudes playing Xbox and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, you're watching some dude play a game that you could literally
I
just
don't
jump on
get
and do
that
it.
either.
No, I know, but the thing is,
I get they do it,
but they make a lot of money. Those dudes.
Yeah.
But I think maybe it's that thing that, you know, when you were younger and mum and dad used to sit next to you and read a book, and whether it's therapeutic or not.
But not that book.
I hope not that book.
Sort of a cross between getting a story time and then when you used to have to pay $4.95 a minute to listen to somebody bullshit you on a phone. No, you never did that? With fake credit card numbers because you'd only get 5 minutes?
With a husky, questionable voice.
You never used to do that?
Nah.
No, this is really outing myself.
Sorry.
You used to be able to jump on those phone lines and you could listen to them and they'd ask you to punch in a credit card number and you were like, as long as it started with a 4 or a 3, it meant you were part of one of the 2 big banks and you'd punch in the number and then it would give you, it'd take like 2.5 minutes or something for them to work
until
out.
they cut you off.
Yeah, and then they go, that's not a real number.
Wow.
So it was just hilarious. You'd have like, we had a bunch of dudes from school and we'd be sitting there like, oh, this number works. People who were writing it down. That was where credit card fraud started.
Look what it is now.
Very savvy, mate.
See that? Told you when it gets awkward, he jumps on a savvy. It's a savvy
I need a bit of a boost when you start talking about paid phone calls. So we've got the genre of the book now and they sort of develop. So
what's the ratio of erotica to fiction? Talking like 1 per chapter? Or are we talking?
No, not 1 per chapter. It sort of progresses, and I think progresses in not necessarily amount but level with each book. And I think that maybe came down to me being comfortable writing it. So
you're urging all your female listeners.
Yeah, keep reading. If you're disappointed with the first one, you wait and see. Yeah.
Actually, here's another dynamic.
Oh, go on.
I really will try not to compare this to porn. I'll keep males as the porn thing, but you're writing for women. It's different. Like we can't.
Well, porn's made for men. Most of it's
that's what I mean.
Yeah, so most porn's directed by dudes. But there
Well,
is,
I mean, there are
directed.
women. Yeah, I guess
there are women. Well, because dudes are we're real visual, and it's like we've got 3 minutes. We're in and out. We're not here to please anybody. Women love taking fucking weeks to like get them to that. Oh, I love this. It's going so long. I'm dragging it out. This and that. Obviously, some women are very wham bam, thank you, etc. And they just skim the first 3 chapters to get to where they need to be. But yeah, it's a different dynamic. Like,
but you're writing it for you in a sense, but then other women are going to read it.
Yeah, I think the storyline was mostly for me, and just being able to actually write and get an escape. And then I think I was like, well, the popular genres on Inkitt were, you know, your spicy books. So I felt automatically like, well, that's what I'm reading. I should be writing that too. So to begin with, like in the first book, even having just finished the 4th edit of it, I maybe felt like a couple of those scenes were kind of forced, like not non-consensual forced, just writing forced.
Right. So
that comes later. No,
so you non-consensual yourself into a book.
Yeah. I felt really violated afterwards. But then as they go on, and I think as the characters develop too, like I figure out the characters and who they are as the books progress, as the readers figure out who they are too. So those things don't come across as forced anymore. And I think the easy thing about writing in like a fantasy genre is nothing's unbelievable. Like, you know, the werewolves, they take one look at
everything's
each other
unbelievable, but that's it's okay because
it's all readable.
That's the whole idea.
Yeah, because you're talking about this ingrained like mating bond that's like built within them, and they're animals at their core and all that sort of stuff. It's believable that they see each other and they want each other straight away, and there's this like intensity to it. Whereas if you're writing like just 2 everyday people, you go, well, it's not as believable.
I mean, it does happen.
It does. No, for sure, it does happen, but you might find, you know,
other people that haven't
stay-at-home mum sitting there and going, that's bullshit.
Well, there's people that haven't experienced that would say it's not real.
Yeah.
But once you put stuff into like fiction, they're like, oh, well, you know.
Yeah.
It's like when you're watching Star Wars and they open the bomb bay doors and they drop bombs and you're like, gravity, anyone? There's none. It's space.
Yeah.
You know, like all the noises and stuff going on. Yeah, no, there's none of that. You can't just open the door and there's oxygen. There's like so many plot holes, but you're like, it's Star Wars, mate.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing
works.
is plot holes. You know, like just run with it.
Yeah.
So I've heard a little bit about these sort of archetypes in romance novels and that sort of thing, but like the werewolf, I can't get my mind around that. Like, how does that? How's their attraction, or what is that? How does that work?
I don't know. I think it does come down to that. All the behaviour is forgiven because at their core they're animals. So,
Forgiven. This sounds.
Yeah.
Is it like is the werewolf the
bad.
bad boy, or like what's the actual psychological tie?
I'm going to go with
his
these
character?
words like ravaged being used a lot.
Yeah, and like, you know,
Animal instincts
he
or things like that.
growled, and it's like it's funny because you watch these videos of, you know, females reading books and they're like, oh yeah, and then he growled her name and she's like, Chloe. They're like, when you actually do it,
You have been rehearsing for audiobooks.
Yeah.
they're like, it's, you know, that sounds really weird, but in the book, you're
Well,
like,
Anthony Hopkins,
yeah,
where
of
he's like,
course he would.
Clarice. He's like, I'm going to wear your skin. Like, that sounds hot.
Wear it, yeah.
You get it, girl.
I think, and stuff like that, there's just, you know, or I was standing in the door frame and he leaned over me with his hand on the wood, and it's like you picture it and I'd be like, oh my God, get out of my personal space.
No, that's
like,
the thing.
what are
I've
you
heard
doing?
that.
Yeah. And there's so many videos based on it where couples, they'll read something and they go, all right, let's reenact that. And some of them are hilarious. And then others you're like, oh yeah, I can see, you know, where the appeal is. So it's funny, I think, with the werewolf thing that you can have a bloke that's the biggest prick and that's, you know, the biggest chauvinist or whatever, and you go, yeah, but he's an alpha wolf, so of course he's not going to be lovey-dovey, and
This is where
women want to be attracted to that, but they think they shouldn't be.
But it's funny because this is real.
Is what doesn't make sense.
Well, no, because this is real society at the
women don't
moment,
make
right? You've got all these dudes. I mean, we'll call them soy boys and all that sort of stuff. But when it's a fan,
The beta-
that's
the
not,
beta wolf.
Yeah, that's not the dude you want.
Yeah,
But the thing is, it's almost like alpha males are now like in case of emergency, Blake Grass. Like we don't want them the whole time. Yeah, everyone's like, nah, you should be able to do whatever and this and that, rah. But then when it's just
when
the
you
fan,
need one.
yeah, you want that.
Yeah.
And then you'll find it, you know, it's like with the fireys or police or whatever else it is. You don't know that dude, but if he rocks up, kicks the door in, comes and grabs you and kicks out the bad dude, regardless of realistically what he looks like, that action arouses a lot of women.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like it's just because it's real primitive. Yeah, like, or you see two dudes fighting, a lot of people are like, oh, they're just being dickheads, they're fighting. But then if you're like, one dude fought that dude because he stole a handbag or he did whatever else it is, now all of a sudden that dude's attractive. Even though it's the same action, it's just a different perspective, and it gets back to real, you know, back in primitive days where, you know, women love being protected or whatever else it is. Now we're in a different sort of scenario where obviously the environment isn't the same, but there is still that innate thing inside people.
It's biology. Like you can't change that shit. As much as the world's changing, it's kind of and you know, some women might go, no, that's not my type, and that's okay. Like that is fine. And there may be the women that are reading sort of romance stories where the good guy gets the girl and whatnot. But
I don't think that exists, does it?
no, it's not entertaining anyway. Like it's boring.
That's the fiction.
But this is what's funny though. Like if you look what's sell, and this is again where you listen to people's feedback. It's like you've got people that make a lot of noise. Are they what actually most people are into? You're like, what's selling is a certain genre, but what's being shown on social media and all that sort of stuff could be completely different to what the vast majority of people are actually into.
Yeah.
Well, I had a question for the end, which is relevant now. So, say this is what some women are choosing to read for like entertainment and escape. So, is there anything?
Why just say it like that?
No. Well, is there anything
Relief?
you
Is that
can
what
tell
you
men?
want to say?
Can men learn anything from the werewolf about real life, or could you not live with a werewolf? Is that just the side story?
I think
What can we understand about
the
these
werewolf
novels in real life?
The werewolf is usually a prick to begin with until he meets the woman that doesn't change him but brings out the softer side in him too.
So it's the Beauty and the Beast story.
Yeah, pretty
in
much.
a different
Yeah, like you can be both.
animal.
You can be
Literally,
both. Yeah.
every bad boy story that's been around. You've got a bad boy, we think he's a prick, rah. Turns out he's actually got a soft inside, but he only shows it when the girl's around, but she still loves the fact that he's got that bad edge, rah. It's the same thing over and over again.
Yeah. And it kind of like that's the stuff that, you know, I thought, that sells books. And so that's where this Stain series was built off. And then I got into it and would throw a few curveballs in. And I lost readers in the second book. I introduced a second love interest because she's got three.
That was a weird groan.
That was a growl.
Wasn't it? Should have said a name. Chloe.
She's got three animals that she can shift into. So it was that she had a fated mate for each one of those animals.
Oh, so she gets to play three worlds.
Don't start this, mate.
But then,
this is a spiral we don't want to get into.
Yeah, so she was sort of torn in the second book because
she's got a lot of different lovers. Of course she's going to
well, she loves the alpha wolf. Like
too far. I knew that was going to happen eventually.
That's graphic erotica.
Yeah.
Oh, I read a book recently.
How is this worse than the baby story we had? Anyway, let's move
True.
on. But yeah, a lot of readers were like, "Oh no, that's ridiculous." And she was only going to end up with one of them in the end. But you've got to introduce in each book. There's
so you teased those two other characters this whole time when you knew she was only going to end up with one of them.
Well, the third one didn't end up coming into fruition at all. You'd have to read the books to understand that. But
feels a little bit backhanded, that. All right, fine.
The Panther love interest ended up being one of the most loved characters in the series. So he ended up getting a spin-off and found the love of his life. So everybody was like authors like to say, we bathe in the tears of our readers. But I'm not an author, so I would never say
and
that.
You write erotica, so...
So much crying.
I was about to leave.
There's levels to that. I'm not understanding them all yet.
It's not all about erotica. You've got to have a...
Got to have a reason for it.
Yeah, there's got to be a reason. And I like sort of drawing readers in, and then like this book that I'm writing at the moment that's got nothing to do with the Stain series, I've got the readers in a place that I want them. Like I've got them exactly where I want them, and I know what's going to happen at the end of the book, and I can't wait. But
it's funny how excited you are about it. I love it.
Yeah.
It's great.
So there's no plan. Is there a plan now? Like you've written so much, or is it just developed as you're writing this?
Well, the Stain series, I never planned any of it. So I just did all of that on a whim. And so I did 7 books, and there'll probably still be more because people are like, oh, I want a book for this character. I really like this character. So there will be a couple more spin-offs. But the book that I'm writing at the moment on Inkit, which is called A Fracture of Light and Shadow, it's a completely different book, and it's a world that I've created. So Bloodstained essentially was, somewhere on Earth, like whether it's America or whatever. I never really specified where it was because I didn't want to be tied down to sort of anything. But I didn't have to create a world. It functioned with our same politics and all that sort of stuff. But
are they all aliens and stuff, or what are we?
No, it's humanoid, like people, like they look like humans, but they're not humans. There's no such thing as a human. There's like
they walk around like we do, but they're
warlocks,
purple.
Fairies, but fairies not as in the like winged little pretty things.
I was like, where are we going?
I wouldn't go there. It's completely different, and it's almost more enjoyable to write because like everything comes down to like I don't have to stick with any kind of people go to school and all, like who said school exists? Like it's in a world that I've created, which I think that comes down to with the Star Wars thing as well. Gravity. How do we know that gravity exists there? Like,
Well, I mean, even just different planets have different, gravity based off that certain thing. But so, see, this is where it's interesting where like you love the Stain series, but, it's like Harry Potter. She didn't start there.
Yeah.
So it's as much as you want to re-edit all those other books, are you then going to do a disservice to the fact that was your learning and it's not going to be perfect, but it's perfect for where you were at the time and where it is. And now this new one's going to be a new level of where you're at. And then the one that you do after this next series might be one that means you can retire and your hubby doesn't need to work anymore, etc.
That would be lovely. I think if I get them grammatically where they should be, then I would stop with the edits because I think, as you said, you could keep going forever. I think the story is where it should be because the readers like it and I don't want to upset people by changing that.
Because you're doing this for yourself, not other people.
Yeah. And obviously I liked where the story was too because that's where I've finished it and I've gone, all right, I'm done, I'm happy with that. And my husband's read the majority of them as well, and I'm sure he was shocked in certain places, but he doesn't read.
And then he growls a lot now.
Where did the inspiration for this chapter come from, by the way?
I always wondered why.
Well,
when I saw him at work, he was
said-
always leaning on a
I said
doorway.
to him on the way out, I've gone, is there anything that you don't want me to talk about? And he's like,
Size. No way.
He goes, he's like, as long as you make it clear that your inspiration for all the males in your books were from me, that's fine.
A werewolf loosely based on.
Yeah.
Well, we joke about it all the time because his mum read the books,
Oh,
and
jeez.
one of the main character in it, his name is similar to my husband's nickname that his mum uses for him. And so I didn't even.
You're all sorts of weird.
I didn't
You're
even.
all sorts of weird.
No.
Did we just enter therapy? What's happening right here?
So she's contacted me and she's like, so I've noticed this. So is he based off my son? And I'm like,
Is this what you're doing with my son?
No. I was like,
No wonder
I was
you have multiple
mortified.
kids. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think she stopped reading the books, but
Well, I can see why. So-
Okay, I'm going to segue. A lot of people enjoy writing, and it's a hobby that a lot of people get into. You just said that you won't have to edit so much when you can get things grammatically correct.
yeah.
How do you achieve that? So I don't know how to punctuate or use grammar correctly. How do you achieve that?
So it's at a fairly, especially after this lot of edits, I think it'll be at a fairly reasonable level. And there's a lot in the sense of dialogue. You edit it how you want it. Like you could get a program like Grammarly, you could run it through and they could go, no, you shouldn't have a comma here. And I'm like, well, no, I want a comma there because there's a pause because that's how they're saying it.
because you've got actual dialogue. Yeah.
Yeah. And even when it's not dialogue, if you just want a pause for emphasis and you
Don't worry about that. The thing that's funny is sometimes the sounds in the background that I'll talk about, I listen to the podcast afterwards, they're not there.
Sense.
Yeah. So people will be like, well, what were they talking about? My ice machine just kept going again. Yeah.
Grammarly. Yeah. So, commas and all that sort of stuff, it's really not the be all and end all. So I think if I found someone that was a friend of a friend and they wanted a few $100 extra cash and I was like, can you read through this and see where it's at and change where it's at? I don't need you to change the story, or if there's plot holes and you pick them up, then let me know. Then I think I'd be happy to just leave it at that, and then maybe even down the track submit that end product to an actual publisher. But I think I'd be shooting myself in the foot if I submitted it the way it is now.
How so?
So, yeah.
Without I don't want to say without an educated person reading it, but I've got a lot of friends that have read it but don't have a background in editing or even advanced English skills or anything like that. So, and they would say to me too, they'd be like, oh, I wouldn't be able to.
Neither of us would be offended that you hadn't gone to us for editing. But the people reading it though, like your plot holes part's great.
Yeah.
Like that makes complete sense. You're like, does this make any sense? And you're like, well, I'll be honest with you, you lost me at such and such, right? But the editing, it's a legitimate job to do. And I might read it and have the same sort of thought process as you, and that'll be great to me. And Al will be like, I was liking the story, but the way it's set out, I just couldn't follow it, and it's just pissing me off. And that sort of thing is where the editing is amazing, because they're like, look, your paragraph's too long there. People aren't going to read that, whatever. It doesn't mean they're changing your words. It just means they're like, you need to put a break here, paragraph, et cetera, et cetera. But that's where you get a professional to do it. You just have to accept the fact that that's what they do.
Yeah.
But if they're like, I want to change the storyline because it's a publisher, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
But I think an editor's probably not ridiculous. If you're going to pay someone a few $100 who's a friend of yours who can't even do an editing at a proper level, I would suggest you're probably better off just getting an editor.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Because how many hours have you spent trying to edit, really?
Too many.
And you've got a whole new world that you're creating. Whilst you were doing that, somebody else could have been doing that with your other books.
Yeah.
And then you'd be excited about going there, and then when you see the edit come back, you'd be excited to go, oh, this is back to where I am, see what they've done with it, etc.
Yeah.
I feel like and I get people want to do everything themselves because they want to learn the process, for example, but sometimes, look, Al and I went to this business network thing, and there was a lady who spoke to it. She's like, stop focusing on trying to make your weaknesses better. Advance your strengths.
What was your strength, man?
We didn't really have one. That was bench press, I think, was
I
my
was,
thing.
I was going to say I can lift really heavy weights.
That's a smash. But there was like, so for example, your time on a what would they call them, traits or something like that. So basically, like, you had certain character traits of yours that were you were naturally inclined to be stronger at, and then the time you spent on that is a force multiplier. So it's like if you've got an hour spent on something you're really good at, now you're like, if you were at 100 on being a brunette or whatever it is, and you put 10 times the amount of it, now you're at you're at 1,000.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're at a 0.2 for that, and then you put 10 hours into it, you're still only going to be at 20.
Yep.
So they were like, the use of your time is to accept that you've got weaknesses rather than work on them. Like if they're hindering you and they're pulling down everything else out, fair enough, you need to fix that. But everyone has a certain amount of strengths, and if you can find that in the other people, like for example on our podcast, like I'm useless at any admin or follow-up or whatever else it is, but the other two that are here, they're amazing at what they do.
Yeah.
You mean you set expectations low and then you don't get asked to do any of it?
100%. Or you perform really badly in stuff
Didn't
you
go
don't
unnoticed.
or you perform really badly in something you don't like doing, and they won't get you to do it again.
Lower your standard to improve your average.
Yeah. I like that.
I love that too.
But yeah, so like if you're great at writing and doing whatever else it is, then that's where you need to be. But I also understand that cash is king, and if you can't afford to do it, you can't.
I mean, I could afford to
I
do
bet
it.
your patrons
but
would contribute.
Well, this is my
towards that.
point. I think we all are on the same page here.
Yeah.
And I dare say your listeners are probably like, well, why, or readers, whatever you want to call them. And they're like, why can't we help her? I'd love to be able to help her, but there's literally not a way I can do it. Like there's a difference between offering somebody the ability to support you and saying, I want support, give me cash. It's the same outcome, but it's like if you're like, look, I will accept stuff as much as I don't really want to. They're like, this is an option here. If people would like to elect to do that, they can help you out. And it's like, that's sort of the easy way to do, like when people want to support, they start a new business and people are like, oh, I don't really want to do that, but I want to help my friend out. If they make T-shirts, people will buy your T-shirt.
Yeah.
They don't even care. They just want to be able to give you something. And
Gives them another layer. I mean, if they're reading, imagine how good they'd feel if they knew they contributed $50 toward the edit of a new book. Like that would be.
You're right, because I
really
putting myself in their
satisfying
shoes,
process.
I'd be the same.
Yeah. And how many people, like whenever you hear a band go big, they're like, oh, I knew them when they were, I hung out with them in the bar and did this and that, rah, rah,
I
rah.
bought their single.
Yeah, I bought that. Exactly. But, like people love being there for the uptake.
Yeah.
So I think, and realistically, prove us wrong. If you put it up there and nobody puts money in there, then we'll be like, hey, you were right, SJ. Everyone thinks your books are
I might
great.
have started like looking at doing a Patreon page, and I can't remember if I actually set it up and then went, this is just another thing to be doing that I don't have time to do.
Surely they can be done without having to put too much emphasis in it. Like you don't have to do that all day, every day, do you?
No, set and forget.
Yeah. I think it's like if they're expecting something in return, I think some
They
authors
are.
do
They're getting-
Patreon, but they might go, all right, I'll pay this and I'll get chapters that aren't going to be in the Inket. Like,
Yeah.
But you dictate that on
Yeah.
the landing page of whatever service you use. So,
true.
it might be, hey, you're contributing to editing of these being properly published, or you'll get these 1 week in advance of everybody else on Inket.
Yeah.
I mean, you set the terms for that.
Because and it's just about what makes you comfortable. But if you're like, well, if I'm going to charge people money, I need to be providing more of a service, and that's fair. But then that's where you have tiers, where you're just like, look, do you want to buy me a coffee while I'm doing this so I can stay awake and keep doing it? Someone's like, yeah, I'll give you $3 or whatever. I don't know, what's a coffee now? It's $7. So it might be different.
Inket
But
actually have that capability.
yeah, because somebody will be like,
You also, the other thing people talk about a lot, especially if you're going to give things in advance, you are able to create your own email list and things as well.
Yeah.
So, if you're self-publishing later, off Inket and things like that, you actually have, 1,000 people's emails that you can put out a pre-order to and things like that.
true.
So, yeah, interesting layers on it.
and it gives people a community that they want to get involved in. Yeah, like the more people can interact with people, the more they feel involved.
Yeah.
And if you're like, look, $10 a month, here's a newsletter of where I'm at, what I'm thinking, et cetera, et cetera. Like it's not really, they get something, but realistically they probably just want to support you. So if they get something in return, it's like it might even be more for you than them realistically. Because if I'm like, hey, I'm going to give you $10 a month, SJ, you'd be like, well, for what? Like you could already get that for free. It's like, well, no, because I love what you're doing and I want to help you do it so you can potentially do this as a full-time thing so that you get better and you grow.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, oh, now
It's probably
I feel
more likely that a lot of them feel in debt having read so much of your material for free.
Yeah, and I think there are readers like that. I've had a couple of authors that I've met on Inkit that have come to my defense. Like someone will post something on my wall saying, I hate the fact that I could read the first 3 books and now I've got to go to Amazon if I want to read the others. And then I've just sort of let that go. But then another author will jump on and they'll be like, you've read 3 books for free. That's hours upon hours this person has put in. And now they're asking you to pay $4 for a Kindle book or $20 for a paperback. And that's an inconvenience to you. Like you probably need to check yourself. And I'm like, whoa, okay, thanks.
It's yeah. I mean, trolls to me is a funny thing because if I don't know who
We're
the
going to
troll
have to create
is,
a course on how to deal with trolls or something, which I'll be. You can run it. I'll be the number 1 student. You're welcome to come along, SJ.
I just find it funny, you know, like some random person said something on the internet. So I don't even know who they are. Why do I care? And especially when, even if you just look at data, it's not what they're saying doesn't line up with everyone else. And how many times do you see online people just start shit just because they want to see someone bite?
Yeah.
And it's funny because, and you hear a lot of people who are famous and actually have like thousands. They're like, for starters, I can't read it all, and secondly, it's like, why would I bother? It's lovely to go on and see a couple of complimentary things, but if you've got 1 million views or reads or whatever else it is, there's your compliment. What you're doing is clearly working, and when you have an event, I can guarantee you, when you're doing a book release or something in the future, there's not going to be that person that comes up and goes, "Hey, I'm sick of paying for your books, you jerk."
Yeah, exactly.
They're not coming.
No.
You know, like, and do you really care what that person says? Because if they're, I mean, the weird thing is if they're commenting, they still read your stuff.
Yep.
You know, like they still liked your book. They're just tight.
Yeah.
And they just don't, you know, if they don't value the fact that you put 20 hours into something to give you $4, then, you know, so be it.
Yeah.
Because the other people that want to support you and love what you're doing, you know, it's like you go to a museum and there's a painting there. That dude's paid, you know, spent how many hours on it? I'm like, yeah, cool, fair enough. But I paid an entry fee because I want to go and see work that people have done, and they deserve to be paid for the hours that they're doing. Like if I go there and I get a feeling out of that, then there is a transaction. I've taken something. Someone reads your book and I don't know what they're doing with it. You know, it's erotica, I could guess. You know, but you used to pay $4.95 a minute for that, and now they can't even pay $4 to read the whole thing. You know, like it's just weird that we want everything for free now, and we're not validating people's. It's weird with art. You know, like people.
Well, you probably like those outliers that are getting it for free. You don't necessarily want them anyway. So if everybody's paying a few dollars, you're going to get some criticism, but from the people that are invested in reading it, not the ones who are just got nothing better to do than.
I think we're so used to having access to everything. Like even with artwork, you could paint something or draw something and go, all right, I'm putting a $2,000 price tag on that. And you feel guilty about doing that, but you know how much time you've put into it, and you go, no, I'd only be happy to give it over if someone was to give me that much money. But then people can go to Kmart and get a print for $5 that's huge, that takes up that space on their wall, that they're not going to spend $2,000 on a piece. And, you know, some people will spend that money, and I guess it's the same with books as well. People will go, no, I'll only read a book if it's free. Or they'll go, oh, actually, I really like that book and now I'm going to buy the paperback copy, which is what I do. Like if I read a book online and I enjoy it, then I will buy the paperback and I'll put it on my bookshelf.
It was like CDs.
So you're not practicing what you're preaching. You're validating other people's work, and you're not allowing yours to be validated.
Yeah.
Is there a way that we can rectify that or contribute to that? Or?
Well, I don't know. We can make anyone do anything, but we like to do challenges on here, SJ.
I have heard this.
Oh, wow. Just double savvy drink there. Everyone's just getting awkward. So I actually have 2 things. One is, because one includes Al, which he's like, oh, wow, I thought I was out of this bullshit. But one's obviously set up a Patreon. However it is you want to do it, have the ability for people to contribute towards doing what you're doing. Look, obviously they can buy your paperback, and a lot of the people that buy your paperback, I dare say, have already read your books, and they're doing that literally to support you.
Yeah.
So if they want to support you and they want to be able to do it like $3 a month or whatever it is, I don't know how that looks. And you're obviously happy to talk to the boys because I have no idea how admin works. So I don't do that. But because, it's a discussion that everybody has. It's like, at which point is it okay? And I don't really like saying, hey, give us cash so we can do more stuff. And it's one of those things that's weird because if you love doing it, you feel awkward getting paid for doing what you're doing. But that's literally everybody that's rich and famous is doing what they love doing and they're getting paid for it, which is why people like it, because if you're all in, it makes it better. But the other one I was thinking was, because I've spoken to you about doing an audiobook many a time. and you're like, oh, maybe this and that. I'll try putting you on a beehive for all sorts of stuff because she just does not want to monetize what she's doing. So I'm going to put it out there that how many characters are in your book?
Sorry, I can't even keep a straight face. There's a few. Oh, I've just got so many ideas going through my head right now.
Yeah, because I have a bunch of microphones, and I want Al to be a character in your audio book.
I did. My head just turned over then. Why you'd mentioned I was included in one of the challenges.
As soon as you said it, I was like, you're either going to get him to write like a dirty book, or you're going to get him.
I'd be offended reading that.
Well, I will buy one of the paperbacks because I'm interested to really find out about this genre now. But
you can read it as you do it. Yeah.
Just wait for the 5th round of edits, and then I'll be all right.
So I want you to set up a Patreon or however that looks to you, and I want us to do an audio book where we'll pick a bunch of people. I'm happy to use the people who've been on this podcast. I would love to see Gareth on here as well.
Is there a narrator? Can I be just the narrator at the start?
Yeah.
This book is brought to you by.
Yeah, he loves a disclaimer on the front of it. But because we've always obviously had
that
people
is a
on
cool
here.
challenge there.
Because we can get Jess back on.
Audiobooks probably doubles your audience as well.
Oh, and TikTok loves that shit.
Oh, do they?
Oh yeah. There's this bloke on I think he was on TikTok for a bit and now he's gone to Patreon for that reason. But I think he lives in New Zealand, but he's got a bit of he's got this weird accent and he looks like a Viking, right? So women send him through stuff to read, just to sit there in front of the camera and read it, and the views that this bloke was getting. And I was messaging him.
Is he a rig? Or could Al and I do it?
You could do it.
I've got a voice for radio.
That was so
I will show you him. And his name, I don't know if it's his real name or not, but it's Icarus. And come on. And I was messaging him a bit and he read part of one of my books and I specifically picked
Easy, your husband's on. He's listening.
Oh, no, he knows all about him too.
Well, obviously, because the Panther got his own.
Which character is Icarus now?
Exactly. He got a spin-off book. It's all right. And he would read bits of books and post it on TikTok. I think he got one of his pages got kicked off TikTok because the language was too explicit or whatever. But now he's got all these middle-aged women that pay Patreon subscriberships or subscriptions, and
this is where the coffee is, Al.
Yeah,
Al,
the coffee is sometimes
Erotica.
where you don't want to find the coffee.
But he would be reading the back of a fabric softener container.
Oh yeah, okay.
And would get so many views. It was ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. Lovely guy.
Well, obviously, you've sent stuff for him to read.
Yeah, and no, he offered to. Yeah, so just stuff like that. And I think he's started doing audiobooks now. So people will pay him and he'll do an audiobook and people listen to it. So
we'll tag him. He can be a character as well.
Yeah. Yeah, you give him a spare room and I can tell you he'd be, as long as it's near surf, he'd be all over it.
Is he Australian or where is he from?
He lives in New Zealand.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's
but
not too far.
he likes to travel and surf and do a couple of Ironmans here and there, whatever.
A couple of Ironmans. So he's a rig. Yeah.
Okay, so the Patreon one, I have one caveat. There's a 1 month time limit on that, and then we will post up the details to that Patreon.
Okay. Yeah.
She's like, I was just going to say, yeah, sure, I'll do that.
Until then, where can people find your books? Is buying the paperback the best way to support you at the moment?
The paperbacks, I probably get 40 cents a book. Yeah, because of the, the
someone's got to make them.
Because your price on them is too low.
Maybe. The ebooks, they're low priced as well, and I get maybe a few bucks per ebook. So if someone's got Kindle Unlimited, then they can read them for free. And
way to sell it. Way to sell it.
How to get it for free? How can people best support your books?
So because I am on Kindle Unlimited as an author, you get paid per page read. So it might be like 0.3 cents a page.
Oh, like YouTube, how you've got views and stuff, like AdSense revenue.
Yeah.
So Amazon?
Amazon, yeah. SJ brand author and
the Stain series.
Yeah.
Plus some more.
When's this new thing going to be?
Well, I just submitted the 80th chapter, and
how many chapters you got to have?
It's going to be a thick one.
Wow, that's what she said. The awkward thing is we have a stripper coming up after this too. Sorry, an exotic dancer, I should probably say.
Oh, male or female?
Male.
Ooh.
I like how you asked that. I never would have assumed that as a choice, but
yeah, they have male ones, Al.
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
Oh, wow. Al's just disappearing, slinking into the hedge like Homer Simpson.
3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Patreon.
Thank you very much, SJ, for joining us.
Audio book.
Check out our books.
Give us a character and we'll fill the roles. It might not be your actual audio book. It may be.
Did you say fill the roles? Oh, okay.
Wow. This is why you don't have erotica novelists.
I don't know if I want to read these books or not. I might be addicted.
You're like, I'm going to read them on my own. So work out how many characters you have and we'll see how we go. We'll have a little bit of a round table reading.
Yep.
We'll obviously keep the secret of who SJ Brand is again, but we can have that. Because I would love to see Caroline Al reading books. I reckon Caras might get into it.
Yeah, maybe. You're going to have to decide if you want final editor's rights on who gets to read parts.
Well, I mean, even if it's just a trial run, like the B team before we go, they're like, hey, that would have been really hot had you have had better people doing it. It's like,
you're going to have to keep a straight face while you're reading it.
I'll be all in on that. The more straight face you can get, the more awkward it's going to get for everyone else at the table. That us done?
On that note, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks very much. Bye.
Just do it. What's the worst that's going to happen? Just do it. Simple.